Welcome to the broadcast, my dears, and welcome to my scullery. It's the first broadcast from my scullery. A minute ago the wind was blowing quite a lot and the ivy was jostling from side to side. I wanted to give you the view out of the window, as well as the fact that it's quite cosy in here. Sorry if the acoustics don't work very well, but it's nice to try something different, isn't it? A blowy day for me, which I love, and it's been quite chilly, so a nice bit of respite from a bit of heat in the spring, but not so nice for the royal family, because they're all outside today, aren't they, for the celebrations? So a bit of a shame for them, but oh, it was adorable. Oh, it was an adorable moment to see little Prince Louis emulating his big brother, Prince George. Isn't that absolutely fabulous and so endearing? A grand flick of the coiffeur out of the way, just like Big Bro. Wonderful. The children were on best behaviour, actually, with Prince George maturing, and the fierce and knowing glare of the eyes of Princess Charlotte, and the energetic handful that's known as Prince Louis, doing what they do very well, grabbing all the attention and the headlines, with our darling sweetheart and beloved daughter-in-law of the King, Catherine, in rich Burgundy, and the Prince of Wales, also in tow, as are, of course, the Queen and His Majesty, the King. We're a couple of days away from the anniversary, the 80th anniversary of VE Day, Victory in Europe. 80 years since that wonderful, glorious day, signalling the end of World War II, and the King is leading the nation through a week of commemorations to remember the sacrifices that were made by the veterans of World War II. And I've brought footage of the scenes of gaiety from Trafalgar Square to you in other years. But this year I chanced upon some footage from the celebrations that were taking place in Dumbarton in Scotland. Yes, this glorious footage was captured 80 years ago this week. Isn't that wonderful to think of? Isn't it like something from a storybook? Well, as you know, Dumbarton more or less went under the radar for anybody that isn't in Scotland or in the local surroundings for a very long time, until it was famously rejected as a public style for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and specifically for the Sussex children before they became Prince and Princess, eventually becoming Prince and Princess by virtue of being grandchildren of a monarch after the late Queen died. Well, Prince Harry is the present holder of the title Earl of Dumbarton, and Prince Archie is of course the heir apparent to that title. And just the same as the dukedom was a wedding gift from the late Queen Elizabeth, the Earldom of Dumbarton is his Scottish style, just as William and Catherine are styled the Duke and Duchess of Rothesay in Scotland. Well, when Harry's in Northern Ireland, he is the Baron of Kilkeel, because he was granted the barony for that purpose. So Harry has all of those titles. He is Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, Earl of Dumbarton, Baron Kilkeel, and, of course, when in Africa, when in Lesotho, he is the grand and great Mahale, the warrior Mahale. And to the wife, he is, of course, H. Just plain and simple H. Stripped of all titles and glory, just my H, my fox. But isn't it curious to think, my dears, that some of these people you see in this footage, the young bairns, the young children coming through from 80 years ago, will still be alive today, won't they? In their 80s or 90s, perhaps in their second spring if they managed to reach 100. Isn't that wonderful to think of? Rather like that 104-year-old veteran, Harry Ducker, the oldest veteran in the British Legion, who was a flight mechanic, served as leading aircraftman for 6 years in the Second World War. I think he was called up when he was 19 years old, and he's going to be the oldest of 30 veterans who are attending the celebrations and meeting royalty for the first time today. Wasn't he handsome, ladies? And still is, I'd wager, here in his second spring. And what horrors he was privy to over 80 years ago doesn't even bear thinking about. And incidentally, the government have announced a new support system called Valour for Veterans, which is backed by £50 million worth of funding with a network of regional support across the kingdom. Now, over the weekend, which is a bank holiday, extended weekend here in the kingdom, I've had the chance to talk to a few old chums, and I've had the chance to obtain a few whispers from extremely credible sources, one in particular, and I'm going to share them with you. Because so much talk over the last few days has been surrounding Harry, the outrage regarding his interview, and people have been calling again for his titles to be stripped, his style to be stripped, his dukedom to be stripped, everything but his body to be stripped. We really don't need to see that again, do we, my dear? Like that night in Vegas, or wherever it was, when he mooned that bony, puny arse. It's not an image that I ever wanted to have emblazoned into my memory. Of course, in addition to being the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan became Countess of Dumbarton, and she was already Countess of Dumbarton by the time she had Archie in 2019. But it was in 2019, after Archie's birth, that she was approached by Sir Thomas Woodcock, the Garter of Arms, to have a little chat about how the titles and the styles and the protocols would work with her son. And it was confirmed that little Archie, who was not yet a prince but would become one, would go by Lord Dumbarton. And immediately they were prepared, because of course they knew this in advance. They were prepared, and objections were raised, unbelievably and quite incredulously. They were concerned about the dumb in Dumbarton, which were wild rumours going around for quite some time. But then it was confirmed by those in the know that this actually happened, it actually took place, and Meghan and Harry weren't having it. They were scared that their child would be ridiculed for being a Dumbo. You know, the Dumbos of Dumbarton, and that's how they'd get known. And Meghan in particular was concerned how it would play out overseas for some reason. They pleaded and pleaded with their absurd point that the child would be mocked mercilessly. Ridiculous. And by the way, there is no doubt at all in my mind, that Rachel, zany Rachel, Queen of Megania, had totally assumed, especially during the courtship phase, had totally assumed that she would become styled as Princess Meghan, a la Diana, who of course was never Princess Diana. That was fiction. She was Diana, or Diana, Princess of Wales, or the Princess of Wales, but never Princess Diana. That became a popular colloquialism. But can you put yourself in Meghan's place and imagine the excitement as soon as she lined up the date with him and she cozied in with him, and she knew she'd be in there because she knew adult when she saw one and knew that she could muscle her way in and seduce and charm and flatter and cajole and lick. And the excitement of Googling away, I'm going to become a princess, and they're going to make the Princess Diaries all over my memoir. And then the deflatedness when she discovers, no, honey, no, you will become Princess Henry of Wales, but you won't be styled that way. No, lovey, you're going to be Duchess of Sussex. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But in Meghan's mind, similar to Dumbarton, oh, it's fusty, it's frumpy. Who wants to be a frumpy old duchess? That sounds very minor. It sounds not so grand. I want to be a princess, a Hollywood princess, and do it my way. And, you know, put her nose out of joint. Well, it was already out of joint. Meghan was hell-bent on being known as Princess Meghan. H, if your mummy, if your mummy can be known as Lady Di and Princess Diana, then why can't I be Lady M in waiting, and then the great and grand Princess Meghan, soon to be queen? Why? I'm her favourite daughter-in-law. She told me when I read the runes, and she told me when I read the tea leaves, and when I channeled her. And I'm going to touch her gravestone, a little touchstone. She's going to channel through me, Diana Megania, the people's princess. Machtu! And we're going to give our daughter Lilibet's name so that she can channel the late queen and become the rightful Lilibet of all she surveys. Meghan was dejected and deflated to discover that her public style would stop at a lowly duchess. But H, I'm so glamorous, and the title is so frumpy. Okay, so we put the sex into Sussex. I can get over that, but now I have to deal with the Dumbos of Dumbarton, too. They will call my child Dumb, the Dumb Prince instead of the Black Prince, and our daughter will be Lady Lilibet Dumfarton. This is what they'll do, Harry. This is racism. This is racism. You've got to call it out. Tell your family. We're not accepting it. Well, the Dumbarton title was created back in the 1670s under King Charles II for a soldier known as George Douglas, and his heir never sired an issue, so the title went extinct in 1749, and it lay dormant for all these years until 2018, on that fateful wedding day when the late Queen Liz picked it up again out of a dusty corner as a wedding gift for her grandson. Big mistake, Queenie. So now on to the present day, and to Prince William, and how things might be handled in the future, in light of their atrocious behaviour, in light of the fact that they moved overseas to a country with no link to the king's realms, other than a revolutionary war, rejecting the very idea in favour of independence, and now taunting and goading and gaslighting, with gay abandon and with coy humble bragging, displays of the HRH title to promote their wares. Now, my understanding, after speaking very recently with people who have known William since his school years and continue to know him and know Catherine and, well, I was going to say and know Harry, and knew Harry, my understanding is that William has every desire to disrobe the Sussexes of their style and his dukedom and all the rest of it when he becomes king. However, and this is a big but, because it's so fun to fantasise about that, and the press are having a great big field day with it again, but the press should know better and know what's possible and know what is not possible. There are complex problems and repercussions that William or Charles, were he to attempt to strip all of these titles and names, might face, but there is a glimmer of redemption. Within our grasp, my dears, there is a glimmer of redemption. The removal of a peerage from a title holder requires an act of Parliament, as many of you know, but even if the dukedom was stripped from Harry, he would still be a royal prince and go by Prince Harry, and therefore she would go by Princess Henry, and no doubt she'd find a way to abbreviate that to Princess Meghan. And even if William was to leave Harry with just the earldom and the barony, Harry could say, well, I don't live in Scotland, I'm not on Scottish soil, so why would I use, and why would my children use the Scottish title of Dumbarton? It would also be a move that might play out as possibly too damaging for the image of William or Charles. So as unjust as it feels to watch Harry and the wife parade and todger around, brandishing their titles and styles, we may have to accept this facet of it for the time being, but I am told that William, for the last few years, has been mulling over various options, especially in regards to the children, who he has no rancour for, by the way. It's not their fault, little mites, nothing to do with them at all. But their Uncle Willie has the reputation of this kingdom and his future kingdom and his reign to think about and his legacy. Now, the word that has been used with me is phasing. Phasing. Don't expect one fatal blow. What you can look out for is a strategy of phasing out. The Sussex dukedom is a substantive title, and it's a hereditary title, unfortunately, of a specific rank of nobility. And bear in mind that a peerage is a form of property, Harry's property. It is an incorporeal hereditament. Hypothetically, when William becomes king, he could choose to exercise his prerogative powers and cancel the letters patent that created the peerage in the first place, but he could be challenged legally if that happened, and the extreme likelihood is that he would, and it is the legal implications that screw up all of these fantastical plans to take away his titles, because as we know, Harry and his family are extremely litigious, and he would love to get them in court and have his day in court with the family and hang out all of the dirty skid-marked laundry on the line for the world to see, wouldn't he? My understanding, what I've been privy to behind the scenes and what I've been learning from a handful of extremely well-placed sources, is that William has been in ongoing discussions to find a solution to the problem of titles and styles now and in the future, because he has no desire for British peerages, royal peerages, more specifically, to leak all over the globe under his reign. The demands to strip them of titles that are coming from the press this weekend are naive at best and stupid at worst. Even if Charles or William did do it, the consequences of that could be and would be fraught with repercussions. What we can take heart in is the fact that it has been deeply satisfying to observe the distaste that the world has as a reaction to their brandishing of their royal style, while simultaneously slagging off the royal family, the royal household, the royal traditions, and royalty itself. Harry's trump card, which he is keenly aware of, is the fact that ostensibly there is no right of reply for William or Catherine or any of the other members of the royal family. He knows that there is a culture of never explaining, and it would actually be folly to do so on many levels. The royal family have no choice but to keep quiet, for one thing, because it would be very vulgar not to do so, but also in order to avert court proceedings. But the happy thing is that over the last few years, we have seen the Sussexes reveal and expose themselves, unravelling year by year, month by month, day by day, leading to mockery all over the world, and not the worship and the admiration that they were reckoning on. But look at Harry's recent interview. Brazen he is. Says anything he likes. He doesn't even brief the interviewer now on what to say and what not to say. He'll say anything. But he grossly miscalculates the amount of support there is out there for him. So this must be a deep bruise to his ego, and I think that he is actually in deep denial about the fact that the vast majority of people think that he is morally reprehensible and a bad son. And what's been entirely obvious to the world over the past few days, if it wasn't before that, is what a gaslighter Harry is. Just like the wife. Gaslighting, continually, all the time. No wonder Willie knocked him to the kitchen floor and tore off his beads. I don't advocate for violence, by the way, under any circumstance. I'm extremely anti-violence. But if there is any grain of truth to Harry's recounting of his story of William's violence in the kitchen, then it only illustrates to me very plainly the fact that words and reasoning and logic and civility had no effect with Harry. No effect. Is it any wonder that the rest of the family do not want to be in your presence with your continual gaslighting and disloyalty? William has made one thing very clear. And now we come for the little nugget of information I've received, the little morsel, the little tidbit that I would love to share with you, and you can watch this space to see how things evolve. William does not want Sussex appearing in the line of succession. He and his father's hands may be tied when it comes to titles and styles, could surprise us all with their prerogatives, but he doesn't want Sussex on the line of succession, and at this moment in time there are three of them. Three of them in that line of succession, with Harry at number 5. There is also Prince Archie of Sussex, Princess Elizabeth of Sussex. And very seriously for a moment, I cannot get over to you how prescient this is in William's mind, how chief this is in his matters of concern at this moment in time. It is under discussion, imminent, because the whole idea of them being in that line of succession is infra-dig. Getting those Dumbartons off of the line of succession is the least complex way of going about this with fewer consequences. Do you understand? Harry speaks about his status, insisting that it hasn't changed. He's still a royal prince of the blood. Well, not appearing on the line of succession is inarguably a lowering of the status. It doesn't read as miserly or as cruel to those who might disparage the king or William for taking titles and stripping the honorifics of nobility and peerage, but it's a sensible, reasonable option for a first phase. I hope this is landing where I need it to land. I have to weave a certain tapestry to get points to you, to get complex matters over to you, in a way that is digestible. The brutal and solid, rocky edifice of a cliff could be bulldozed, causing a lot of catastrophe, or the salty ocean can wear at it in phases. The order of succession can only be altered by statute, but it's an alteration that is more likely and more easily achieved with the titles remaining. But no succession, no role as Councillor of State. And think about it, if this were to be used as a first phase, if you will, by William, I believe that it would be met with sympathy and understanding, and not too much rancour from the rest of the world. Amanda Thornton, you bring some levity to this discussion, and you may have a point because you say, H&M want reconciliation all of a sudden. The truth is, this evil pair, the Sussexes, are shit scared of losing their titles after the death of the king because they are up shit creek without them. Simple as. I can't argue with that. Lorraine Jenkins says he's not a full ticket, bless him. He's confused. He's the one who bragged about killing 25 enemy, thereby increasing his risk of attack. Exactly, Lorraine. He said he didn't love England. Now he loves England. Top story empty. Shame. She has convinced him. Well, I don't think that he needed much convincing from her, but folie à deux, what can you say? You know, people say, oh, well, Harry is now saying he's in love with England, he hates England, he doesn't love England. If you're not from England, you might not understand. To know it is to love it. Its beauty, its landscapes, its culture, its humour, its people. It really is a splendid place. And Harry does have a tremendous amount of love for it. You think anywhere else in the world really compares for Harry, other than England, with the exception perhaps of Africa. He fell in love with Africa. And I was going to say the reason why he was so disenchanted with England as a teenager, and made that very clear with that vulgar display on television, where he told the world that he doesn't like England very much.
I don't want to sit around at Windsor because I just generally don't like England that much, and it's nice to be away from all the press and the papers and the general shite that they write.
The very reason was due to his jealousy for his brother and the fact that he would never become king of this country. It was William's to inherit. Do you understand? It was William's to inherit. The jealousy was there. Why am I working towards all this? Why am I doing my stint in royal service when I'm the second and I'm the spare? What's it all for? I'm not the wingman. I'm not the support act. I'm the alpha. I'm the great Taj. I'm the great Mahali. So in Africa, Lesotho, he becomes Mahali. Whenever William is not about, he becomes the alpha. Do you understand? When Big Brother's about, not a chance. Not a chance, no fault of William's. It's not really that he didn't like England, it's that he didn't like his fame as a spare. He wanted his fame to be as a king. So, like the wife who wants to be Queen of America and every dominion in the world, he thought that he would be able to join her in that ambition. But he's still second fiddle. Isn't it desperate? But as we saw in that footage of him as a much younger person, declaring that he doesn't like England very much, do you see the impishness that's always been there? He had that impish quality from the get-go, that gaslighting quality from the get-go, because he knew exactly what he was saying, knew exactly what the press would do with it, and he has an axe to grind, and he's had it for all of these decades, and he has it still, despite all the beads and the chanting, and the ayahuasca, and the woodgy tantric sex, whatever he's up to with Meghan, I don't know. And all the green smoothies that Montecito can provide. After all that, he's still second fiddle, and he can't get over it. He's still full of vengeance. But just as you say, Lorraine Jenkins, he ping-pongs, I don't like it, I hate it, I love it, my kids are going to miss it. He's not the full ticket. There is some intelligence there, but it is mischanneled. This is the trouble. There's a screw loose. Something's haywire in the mind, do you understand? And he uses these moments, he uses these sound bites that he's given in the past and that he gives now to play games with William and with Charles, his father and brother, to play games, to wind them up and to gaslight. Emmy Tala, have you seen the BBC has put out a form of apology on their corrections and clarifications page? And Lissa May says he chose to go to the BBC, the ones who literally tricked his mother into giving that interview. It shows the hypocrisy he has, and all his whines about the press and his mother mean nothing to him really, other than a ticket to victimhood. Well, there have been rumours going around that Harry was paid millions for his interview. I don't believe that to be the case. I think that's sophistry, and it's certainly not de rigueur. This is the BBC we're talking about, and I understand that in recent years they've been extremely disappointing in so many ways, and overtaken by wokedom with a few cuckoos in the nest. But historically, I have great affection for the BBC, absolutely great affection for the BBC. Most people who are born here in the kingdom do. Things have changed in recent years, but they are more than just the news. The BBC are a huge, vast conglomerate, and having been employed by the BBC since I was 10 or 11 years old, on and off, I happen to know firsthand the great talent that is there and is nurtured there, and I'm not going to just bash it outright, because it certainly needs to become less London-centric or city-centric, and it needs to feel as if it is an institution for the nation. But I have historically been very proud to have the BBC associated with our country. But moreover, for this episode, even with the hand-plucked interviewer out of Montecito and Santa Barb's, they did us a great big favour, didn't they, my dears? They did us a great big favour. And indeed, they admitted a lapse in their high editorial standards, but I think a lot of that was due to the fact that it was rushed out. They wanted to get it straight out there. I do not believe that it was a preemptive interview. I think, judging by her own testimony, that the interviewer saw Harry that day after the verdict was announced. And let's face it, even if Buckingham Palace had been offered a right to reply by the BBC, they wouldn't have taken it. It's a very unusual step, but yes, they should have been asked, and they did provide a statement after the fact and after the fallout. Thank you so much for joining me here in the scullery. It's been a little bit of a challenge because it's the first broadcast I've done standing up, and I've got my laptop here on a rather wobbly stand, so I'm sorry if there have been any problems in your viewing of it, but you get to see the rustling ivy, and isn't that wonderful? That's why I brought you in here. So I hope you found it charming in its way, and I look forward to seeing you next time, my dear. It feels like Sunday, but it's Monday, isn't it? Yes, bank holiday. So I'll see you very soon. Lots of love. Do leave me your thoughts, and if you would like to treat me to a bank holiday bunty, then my tip jar is in the description box. Ta-ra and toodle pip. Thank you.